Chapter 6 of A Sharper's Downfall, or Into the Net. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. A Sharper's Downfall, or Into the Net, by Nicholas Carter. Chapter 6 A Strange Meeting. When Patsy returned to the place he had appointed to meet Bally Morris, he was surprised to see that person waiting for him with Spike Thomas. So warm was their greeting of him that Patsy began to think that they regarded him as one of their pals. As the proper way to open up the business of such importance, Spike asked Patsy to join him in a drink, and when they were ranged at the bar, Spike said, "I say, Patsy, was youse on the dead level, or was youse giving Bally a stiff about dat case?" "No," said Patsy soberly. "I was on the dead level about it. Say, I'm giving it to you straight when I'm telling you me boss is only in the case for to get that leather case with the papers in it. He's got to get it some way, and he's sizing it up that it's got to be got by coming down with the dust." "That's straight talk," said Spike. "Of course it's straight," said Patsy. "It's one of the cases where you play your cards with the faces up. Somebody swiped the papers. The man from whom the papers was swiped wants 'em bad, and they're worth more to him than to anybody else. To get 'em back, he'd forget in a minute that his crib was cracked. Now that's all there is in it." "Does youse know for sure that leather case was swiped?" asked Spike earnestly. "Sure." "Does youse know who did the swiping?" asked Spike. "No, I don't know anything about it," said Patsy. "But you do." "I think I do, but I don't know for sure." "Oh, come off," said Patsy. "You know that Lanigan and another fellow did the job." "That's just what I think," said Spike earnestly. "I'm dead certain of it, but not knowing it for sure. They won't say so." "Say," asked Patsy, "didn't they come back as they agreed to from the other side of the river?" "Yep, they come back all right, but they wouldn't talk." "What did they go across the river for?" "I'm blessed if I know." "Then I'll tell you what for," said Patsy. "They went across there to stow the sparklers in the tin, the fence, you know." Spike started up with great interest. "Oh, come now," said Patsy. "You don't want me to think, Spike, that you're so far behind that you don't know that the safest fence around here is across the river." "Oh, I heard so," said Spike humbly. "But honest, Patsy, I ain't never been there, for there ain't been nothing doing with me for so long that I'm parched back to the roots of me tongue." "Well," said Patsy, "that's what they went across the river for. But I ain't got nothing to do about that. My peepers are on that leather case." "Well, anyhow," said Spike, "when they come back, they wouldn't talk any more than before they went." "You mean," said Patsy, "that they wouldn't say whether they were in that job on 35th Street or not?" "That's what I mean," said Spike. "But say," said Bally Morris, speaking for the first time, "Spike put 'em at him anyhow." "Put what at him?" asked Patsy. "Oh, I put up the story as to that case and what there was into it if they held on," said Spike. "How'd they take it?" asked Patsy. "That's just it," said Spike. "They took it all in, and they swallowed it for gospel truth. Then the two culls looked at each other, and I seed they meant to freeze on it, but was going to freeze me out. Say, Patsy, it was a clean throwdown. They's going to play their own hands on the tip I give them and freeze us out." "Are you going to let 'em?" asked Patsy. "Not on your solid nut," said Spike. "You stand by and see what the next shuffle of cards turns up for trumps." Spike and Bally Morris winked at each other and laughed. "We ought to take Patsy in," said Bally Morris. No," said Spike. "Patsy don't want to be in on this game. He don't want to know nothing about it, but all the same, we're on the dead level with him. You don't want to be in this shuffle, Patsy, but you'll be in all the same on the scoring." Patsy understood by this that something was going forward that, in the opinion of the two, it was best for him to know nothing about it until it was all over, but that it was in the line of his wishes. Spike drew himself up, and with a wink and a leer said, "I'm a little of a fly cop myself, and we ain't doing so bad after all, are we, Bally?" "Not on your life," said Bally. The two toughs laughed heartily, and Spike added, I give Lanigan to Gladhand and put him on to Du Bois when he landed here. But he's trod me down. Maybe he'll want to know who trod him up." To this, Patsy made no remark. He was anxious to get away in order that he might follow the two toughs, for he knew that they had entered into some sort of a scheme in connection with this matter. "Well, Spike," he said, "if you don't want to let me into what you're up to, all right. I've been on the dead level with you, and anyhow, you ought to be with me." The tough made the strongest protest in his own language that he had no idea of going back on Patsy, and the young detective slipped away. He did not go far, however, but, concealing himself in a place where he could not be observed, watched to see the two toughs come from the drinking place where he had left them. They came out in a short time and went in the direction of 34th Street, turning to the east. Patsy slipped after them and cautiously followed down the block in 34th Street to see them meet on the next corner, a young lad of their own kind, not more than 16 or 17, who told something to Spike which gratified him to such an extent that he grasped Bolly Morris's hand and shook it hard as he capered a clumsy dance on the sidewalk. The two then turned on their heels, walking in the direction whence they had come. Patsy was put at some difficulty to get out of sight in time, and only did so by hiding behind a signboard leaning against a grocery store. The two passed on to 3rd Avenue, Patsy in fairly close pursuit. Reaching 3rd Avenue, Bolly Morris made an inspection of the drinking saloon on the corner and soon came out, shaking his head at Spike. The two then walked up 3rd Avenue rather leisurely, followed by Patsy, until 42nd Street was reached. Here again, Bolly Morris went into the liquor saloons on the corner and came back to report to Spike standing on the upper corner. The place was not an easy one for Patsy to keep the two in sight. For a time, the two manifested no disposition to leave that corner, and while Patsy was wondering what their purpose was, he caught sight of Chick coming down 42nd Street rather stealthily. Patsy looked around to see whom he was following, and finally hit upon a low-sized, broad-shouldered man, dressed in the extreme of fashion, who was walking down the street in a vigorous and self-satisfied way. Patsy at once put himself in a position where he could signal Chick that he was nearby. Chick caught the signal and immediately returned one which meant that Patsy should come to him if he could. As the man Chick was following reached the corner of 42nd Street and 3rd Avenue, that is to say, the northeast corner, he stopped and looked about in every direction. Apparently he did not see the person he was looking for, because he settled himself for a wait. This gave Chick an opportunity to cross the street to where Patsy stood. As he came up, he asked, "Shadowing?" "Yes," said Patsy. "Who?" Patsy grinned and replied, "My two assistants." "What are they doing?" "I don't know, but they are up to some game that I can't see through." "Who's your man?" "Seaman." "The deuce," replied Patsy. "What is he here for?" "I don't know," replied Chick, "but I followed him here from Broad Street." "He is waiting for somebody?" asked Patsy. "It looks that way," said Chick, "and I think it's Lanigan." At this moment, Patsy caught the arm of Chick, and giving it a hard grip, nodded his head up the street. Chick turned to see Nick Carter coming down on the same side of the street on which he had followed Seaman. "He's on the shadow," said Patsy. "Yes, but who?" "I ain't sure," said Patsy, "but I'll bet it's that man with the black frock coat, black hat, and full beard." Chick and Patsy both separated in order that they might give the signal to Nick that they were in the neighborhood. But each kept their eyes upon those they were following. Spike Thomas and Bolly Morris were still standing on the corner they had selected, and Seaman was on the corner opposite them. As Nick neared the corner, he made a rapid signal which showed that he had received theirs, but made no effort to join them. In the meantime, the man Chick and Patsy had selected as the one followed by Nick went on to the corner, where he went to Seaman, touching him on the shoulder and shaking hands with him. "I'll bet," said Chick, "that the man is the lawyer, Elwell." "How do you know?" asked Patsy. "I don't know," said Chick. "I'm only guessing." In the meantime, Nick Carter had concealed himself at a point from which he could watch the man he had followed. Seeing that he was in conversation with someone on the corner, he called Chick and Patsy to him. Elwell? Asked Chick as he came up. Yes, said Nick. Do you know who he is talking with? Yes, said Chick. It is my man, Seaman. Seaman? Repeated Nick. That is strange. They have met here by arrangement? To meet someone else, said Chick. And why are you here, Patsy? Asked Nick. I followed my 2 assistants here, said Patsy, from the foot of 34th Street. It is very strange that following men from different parts of the city we should all meet here, said Nick. But we must separate. It won't do for us to bunch together here. But keep in touch with each other, boys. Chick slipped across the street, closely followed by Patsy, but on the other side, Chick took up a station near the elevated railroad pillar, while Patsy, going further, crossed 3rd Avenue and took a station there, where he could more easily watch the 2 who were his especial charge. He had been there but a moment or 2 when he saw signs of excitement in Spike Thomas and Bally Morris. They evidently were trying to conceal themselves from the view of someone on the opposite side of the avenue. Patsy made an effort to see if he could determine who or what was the cause of this excitement, and saw Lanigan coming down the avenue with the same man he had seen in the saloon in 34th Street. It struck him at once that Chick and Nick did not know Lanigan, and so he slipped across the avenue again, using a passing streetcar for a cover, and, reaching Chick, said to him, Lanigan and his pal are coming down the street. At this moment, Lanigan came into view and immediately went up to Elwell and spoke to him. That's him, said Patsy, speaking to Elwell. Let the chief know who it is. He stepped back to look at his own men and saw that they were hastening up 3rd Avenue at a rapid gait. Without waiting further, he darted after the 2, well satisfied that the one they had concealed themselves from, and from whom they were now running, was Lanigan. In the meantime, the 4 men on the corner had exchanged a few words, and then Lanigan and his companion turning, followed by Seaman and Elwell, led the way into the saloon on the corner near them. Chick crossed 42nd Street to Nick, saying, The 2 who met our men were Lanigan and his pal. Does Seaman know you? Asked Nick. I do not think so, replied Chick. Then slip into that saloon and see if you can get near enough to hear what their talk is about. Chick walked away hurriedly and entered the saloon. Nick took up a position on the street where he could watch both entrances and waited for developments. End of Chapter 6. Read by Paul Hampton.